Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, hockey fans, whatever time of day you're tuning us in. Welcome to the Ultimate Hockey Show, the NHL Stanley Cup semifinal preview show. On your left, the guy speaking is myself, Michael Gill. On the right is my favorite co-host for this show. Anyway, his name is Red Petty.
That's not much of a compliment considering I'm your only co-host. So to say that I'm your favorite co-host, that's kind of like if I only had one kid to say you're my only child. It's a little bit, it's okay. It's a compliment, but there's a few asterisks behind it. But anyway, nice to see you, Michael. How are you?
I did a little bit of chaos this afternoon. Heading out on some holidays after we're done this show, and then we'll see what comes of it.
Which is why we're at a unique time today, right?
Unique time. So that we can slide this in before I go away for a couple days. Going away, speaking of on vacation, is our beloved Winnipeg Jets. They'll be on vacation till next hockey season. Pretty interesting segue that way.
Yes,
the Jets losing in 4 to Montreal, including the last one in overtime on a Tyler Toffoli game-winning goal. Kind of the reverse metrics, if you will. The Jets sweep the Oilers and then get swept by the Montreal Canadiens. As you said on our radio show, I think it was on Monday. I think it was.
Yep.
Yeah, we had already, or Tuesday, sorry. We had already talked about the Jets being swept. But now that it has been a couple of days, is there anything that kind of jumps out at you? Because, I know that there can be a lot of things said in the 24 to 48 hours post-elimination for a hockey team, kind of heat of the moment, kind of discussion amongst players, whether it's players, whether it's coaches, whether it's the GM, whether it's fans. We like to overreact, right? We got swept. Not a good feeling to be swept, but has your opinions on anything changed in the last 3 days since we've kind of had a little time to take a breath and evaluate?
Well, actually, no. It's changed in that it's actually crystallized and become more clear to me than it was when we had our radio show on Tuesday. The Jets are a good team. They have a few very good players that are a nice core, a nice nucleus, and those really good players can hide a lot of the flaws that are remaining on the team. Where you see it, like a team like Montreal, they don't have any superstars, but they don't have any weak spots. They play their fourth line as much as they do their first line, and they get contribution from all their lines. So they're not top heavy on super talent, but they've got a lot of mid-range talent, which can go a long way with a system and with a really great netminder. So same thing with the Islanders, same thing with Vegas, same thing with Tampa Bay. Those are teams that now you see them, they have really good net mining. They don't have many weaknesses, and they play their system well. And I think for the Jets, they have a really great netminder. They've got some really good scorers and some good offensive talent, but they've got some holes in their lineup that they're going to have to fill, like we talked about on Tuesday. And that's with defense. They're going to need to find somebody to play in a top pairing or they need to improve their top 4D, and they need to improve their third and fourth line. Maybe not so much their third, but their fourth. They need to improve overall their fourth line and need to get some more balanced ability in their team. And I don't know how they do that. Like you were talking about, is it from the ranks? Is it moving young players up, or is it acquiring free agents, or is it a combination of both? I hope that they be able to add some talent from within their team, but to address as many holes as they have, I think they have to play in the free agent market, and I hope they can, but we'll see. How about for you?
If you want to leave a comment like Rob did, you could leave it on the Game Time TV Facebook page. You can drop your comment below our video, and we'll show your comments just like Rob has. later on in the show. Rob's comments are for later in the show.
Okay.
About 5 minutes from now when we talk about the semifinal. But I just wanted to touch quickly a couple more things on the Jets. I was at their media day on Wednesday. I was also on the call with Paul Maurice and Kevin Cheveldayoff on Friday before bolting away for the weekend. But here's the thing. Does Chevy have to balance this core wanting to be together as much as he has to find a way to fix this team? Like Ehlers and Wheeler and Dubois and Morrissey and Pionk, they all said, you know what, this core is good together. It's going to grow together. We deserve the right to stay together. They also put marching orders on their head coach, but they made it abundantly clear that they wanted their head coach to stay. So my question to you is, if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, how do you see through that versus, trying to, I guess, give the players what they want, but also advance the Winnipeg Jets in a way that doesn't, if you have to remove from that core or make no promises to somebody on that core, how do you do that without ripping apart the locker room, for lack of a better term?
Well, I don't think you have to rip apart the locker room. I agree with you. And I think the core, like I said earlier, the core is good. You've got a great goaltender. You got a couple of really good you have a really good goaltender. You have a few pretty good defensemen, Morrissey, Pionk, and I would put Logan Stanley into that mix. And you've got some high-end forwards who can score, and you've got a little bit of grit in Adam Lowry. What they need to do, in my mind, is they need to add some more talented young grit. They need some more Adam Lowrys who can score, who are younger, and who can add some energy and whatever you want to call it onto the fourth line, but who aren't just guys that you throw out for 8 minutes a game and in the playoffs they sit on the bench for the whole second and third period. To me, that's useless. That's not working. You see how it is with Vegas. You see how it is with Tampa and New York Islanders. They play their fourth line. Montreal, for sure. I think Vegas might go down to 3 lines once in a while, and maybe Tampa. But Islanders and Montreal have played their fourth line as much as they played their first line all the way through. And it works if you've got talent that can go there and you can trust them. And I think that's what the Jets need, is they need to add some grit, some not guys that are dirty, but guys that can score ugly goals in the playoffs, guys that are willing to pay the price, to go to hard places.
Basically, what you're saying is you need 3 or 4 Corey Perrys, and then we'd be set.
But like a Corey Perry when he was 28, not a Corey Perry at 38 or 36 or whatever he is. But I'm just saying, I don't know what it is. They just were. I think one of them said, it might have even been Andrew Kopp, and he's a very smart guy. He understands hockey. He said, we are too easy to play against. They have to be harder to play against. Their defense have to make you pay a price to go to the front of the net. We don't have enough guys other than Logan Stanley who put a stick in somebody's nose or an elbow in your face and put a shot in the ribs or whatever to make it hard for you to get those areas. And we need some more grit, and we need more grit on the third and fourth line too. We've got lots of talented guys, but we need more grit. And I don't know how you do that, because I'm not sure we have that within the pipeline. I think we may have to go out and get it. But that's my analysis. Somebody else who writes into the show might say, but I don't think we need to blow up the team. I don't think you need to trade away, with 2 really talented players in order to change the makeup or the chemistry of the room. I think we have a good core of players. We need to add something to the defense and the forwards in order to make them better. And I think to make them better, I agree with Andrew Kopp. They've got to find guys that are okay during the regular season, but their true value comes in the playoffs, because they become hard to play against and they make your team hard to play against. That's what we need, in my opinion, anyway. But I'm not a general manager. How about for you? What do you think?
Well, here's the thing. I think the core is fine. I think they need to work on that supporting cast. Um, I also think there needs to be a discussion with Coach Maurice on, okay, we can't have this veteran fourth line anymore. I think we need to see instances where it's okay to put Billy Hanela and Dylan Sandberg in the lineup at the same time. Maurice seems to have this real reluctance of integrating too many young kids at once, for fear of throwing the lineup into a bit of a chaos. But I think that's okay. I think other teams do it. I think Vegas is a prime example. Their fourth line in game six against Colorado. Keaton Kolazar scored a goal. They got defenseman goal from Alex Petrangelo. They got some timely saves from Marc Andre Fleury. I think the Jets need to have a better balance of not being so scared to play younger players, and always, I know it's always been Maurice's ammo, if you will, to always seem to fall back on the veteran players, the Nate Thompsons of the world, the Matthew Perreaults of the world, on the fourth line. But personally, I don't see an issue with playing a David Gustafson, a Jansen Harkins, and one of Thompson or Perreault or Trevor Lewis, and letting those guys get experience. And same with the back end. I don't think there's that big an issue playing a Billy Hanel next year. Um, Although I did find interesting what Maurice had to say about that. It was either Maurice or Chevy where he said a player like Billy Hanel has to come in and win a spot on the left side, which is already a log jam. Um, I find that very interesting. I also find it very interesting too, the correlation between what the fan base feels is NHL ready versus what the management feels NHL ready, because I think those are two different things. I think people see, what goes on in Dallas. Miro Heiskanen is an example. Um, Even Montreal, if I could take some of the young forwards like the Chetaniemi, like the Suzuki, just to name a few, those guys having success. I think what the coaching staff values as NHL ready is entirely different than what the fan base touts as NHL ready. And I think, to be frank, I think the pandemic changed a lot of things, because I really believe that guys like David Gustafson, guys like Billy Hanela, guys like Dylan Sandberg wouldn't have been uh, preeminently featured on the practice roster. I think those guys would have been um, heavy minutes in the American Hockey League, and I don't want to say their development got stunted in any way, but teams were forced to take a practice squad this year for COVID-related reasons, and that unfortunately led to Billy Hanela not seeing a lot of ice, because I think in a normal year, and not on when things get back to normal in the fall, um, I think we're going to see a Billy Hanela. If he doesn't make it in training camp, I think we're going to see a lot more guys that were on the practice squad this year start the season with the Moose and then have to earn their spot on the Jets. It's kind of that rule of, one call up and then you never go back down kind of thing, like what Detroit used to do with the Grand Rapids Griffins. I just think the Jets were the victim of circumstance and forced to bring five guys on the taxi squad, but maybe were destined for the AHL. And I think that maybe set a false hope of expectation. So, my long winded answer to that is I believe that Maurice, within reason, needs to be open to playing more younger players like what we're seeing on other squads. However, if he feels and Cheveldayoff feels that they are not ready for that, well, then I think we as fans need to trust their judgment. And that's why I said it
Okay.
goes back to what the fan base thinks is NHL ready versus what the guys making the actual decisions feel.
Right. But again, you said this on Tuesday, and I have to correct you in this. Cheveldayoff and Maurice don't work in isolation in separate vacuums from each other. They're locked in step. Some general managers will kind of cut off from their coaches, which is near the end of the coach's tenure, because then eventually the general manager will just cut ties with them and get rid of them. But Maurice and Cheveldayoff are joined at the hip. Cheveldayoff brought in Thompson and Lewis, and with Perreault became the fourth line to start the season when everyone was healthy.
Yep.
Excuse me. So that's what they did. So to say, well, Maurice has to be open to playing younger players. Maurice is only going to play the players that he has to choose from. And he's not going to have the general manager bring in a bunch of veterans and then tell the general manager, no, I'm going to play all these guys that are younger without experience. They talked about it. They said, we got to bring in some veteran experience for the fourth line. Cheveldayoff, he did it. Maurice played them. Now, if they'd gotten injured, it would have been a different story. So I'm saying, you keep saying, well, Maurice has to be open to playing younger players. No, they have they have to decide what they're going to do. And that's why I'm saying this offseason, they have to decide to go younger. They have to decide to go with new grit, new sandpaper, some new life into this team, and some upgraded talent on their defense core and on their third and fourth lines, and make themselves harder. They have to get larger, and they have to get more nasty, whatever word you want to call, to be harder to play against. If that's young players that they have in their lineup from the Moose, or whether that's being brought in. So, but Maurice, he'll play younger players if that's what they decide to do as a team. They decided to do that 5 years ago when they brought in all the rookies and said, we're going to let them develop and they will be good down the road. And now we're there with Connor and Ehlers, Scheifele, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just saying, Maurice is not working in a vacuum. He gets lots of input. From my understanding is general manager and coach have a very good relationship. And when they make decisions, who plays is as much the general manager deciding that as the coach. That's my opinion.
I just find it very interesting if you go back to the trade deadline where Cheveldayoff said he'd like to see more of Ville Heinola. He made that very, very public. And that raised a lot of eyebrows. So I can understand that too as well. But maybe the management that needs to have a philosophical shift. If I said Maurice needs to have a philosophical shift, I think it's time for Cheveldayoff to also be on board with the philosophical shift. Because the way I see it, I think you're hard-pressed to have Thompson, Lewis, Perreault, Stastny all back. I think 2 of the 4 come back, maybe 1 of the 4. But are you really going to block a path for your so-called guys on the cusp to prevent them from getting to the NHL? I don't know how you see that. Plus, there might be upgrades in free agency with younger guys that would be serviceable of an upgrade. Most importantly, in the minds of Stastny and Perreault, be maybe cheaper unless they're willing to take what I would believe to be a really sizable pay cut to stay in Winnipeg. But that's just me. I think you go to Matthew Perreault and you say, okay, you know what? You made $4.5 million, $5 million. Okay, can you cut that down to $1.5, $2 million, or $500,000 to $1 million? Because that's really what the role of a guy like Perreault is now, is practically the league minimum salary. If he can't do that, then it's obviously time to cut ties with those types of players. Stastny, I don't believe he can go out and command the marketplace at $7 million like what he signed for in Vegas. I think he needs to take a sizable pay cut to stay here. And one thing I found very interesting was that he left the door open to come back to Winnipeg. He's liked it here now. He's been here twice. I think Winnipeg, something deep down tells me that this next contract won't be all about the money for Paul Stastny, but rather the fit. And I think if you can get Paul Stastny at around $2 million or 1.75, okay, that's something you look at. I'm not saying you go for it. But again, can you upgrade those positions, get younger, get cheaper, get faster? And if you can do that, I think this core is going to be good. You bring in a defenseman. A lot of people saying Dougie Hamilton. I'm not in that boat yet. I'm in the more Jamie Oleksiak kind of boat. I know they tried with Jordy Ben, but that didn't necessarily work out.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious, Rhett, if Shoveldayoff goes back to something that he was working at the trade deadline, if he revisits some of what he had cooking, but never materialized, because we heard about it afterward, that the Jets were in on one or two key pieces to sizably change this hockey team and project them to a Stanley Cup contender status. So I'm wondering if he just revisits that and how he goes about it.
He may.
Right. I think now you kind of said to everybody, okay, eventually Shoveldayoff has to he has to basically, I don't want to be held accountable, it's too harsh. But at some point, you have to evaluate the job of your general manager, what is going to be 11 years in the fall. And sometimes he's going to have to be evaluated just like everybody else.
Okay. Okay. You and I will agree to disagree on some parts of it, because I just don't I don't see there being a problem with coach or general manager. I'm not saying there's a problem. I just think they might need to have a philosophical shift to get the Jets to the next level. Well, okay.
The status quo isn't working.
Well, I don't know if it's a philosophical shift. I think that they have to upgrade their talent. There's just no other way to spin it. You could say, oh, they've got to change the makeup of the room. They've got to change their chemistry, whatever gobbledygook sports cliche phrase you want to use. The bottom line is they're not good enough. They don't have enough talent throughout their lineup. And especially they took a hit on the defensive core 2 years ago, and they haven't recovered from it yet. And they've put in patchwork pieces between Forbert and Ben and even the DeMello and so on. And to me, this team will be better when they upgrade their defensive talent and they become harder to play against and bring in some more speed, more grit with a little bit more talent on their third and fourth line. They need to, like other teams get scoring from their third and fourth line. We don't get enough scoring from our third line, maybe, but our fourth line, no. We just do. Thompson and Lewis and Perreault did not score enough relative to other teams' fourth lines. They just didn't. And that's a fact. I mean, you could spin it 100 ways to say, well, that's not what they were asked to do. It doesn't matter. They're the fourth line. When they play, they should be scoring to some degree, and other teams' fourth lines produce more than ours throughout the year, whoever was on the fourth line. So to me, that's, maybe I'll just wrap it up, is they need to upgrade. And I don't think it's necessarily changing a philosophy. It's just they have to be better. They have to improve their team, and how they do that, that's the question, because I don't know how easy it is to play, like you say, in the free agent market. Maybe players don't want to come here. Maybe it'll be a new market now because there's more players than there are spots on teams. So Winnipeg might not be such a bad choice because your alternative is to play in Europe or to not play at all. So that may change things. They may have to make a trade. Maybe they'll have to trade away somebody of significance on the forward side in order to bring in somebody of significance on the defensive side. And the other X factor is, who are they going to lose in the expansion draft? That, I think, is another determining factor, because you don't really want to go out and make all these acquisitions for players and so on until you've decided who you're going to protect, who you're not going to protect, and then who you think you're going to lose as a result of the expansion draft. So,
yeah, I think if Chevy doesn't win a side deal, I think he loses Mason Appleton, but that's just me. And that would be an absolutely devastating loss for the Jets.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Well, we can have that discussion another day. It's great to have a discussion because you and I rarely agree to disagree. I see what you're saying. You see what I'm saying. Maybe we're just communicating that in the wrong way. But anyway, that's that. That's why they have these discussions. And if everybody agreed with one another, then life would be pretty boring.
Yep.
So that's the way we go. Let's talk about the Stanley Cup semifinals here really quickly.
Okay.
The Islanders, the East Division's 4 seed, taking on the 3 seed in the Central today in about an hour and a half from now from Amalie Arena in Tampa. Rick, what is your initial reaction to this series?
Well, maybe we should take a step back even before that and just do sort of an overview of the last round, just so you know, if people are wondering, you know nothing about hockey. I know next to nothing because there were 4 series and you got all 4 wrong. I got 3 out of 4 wrong. So you were 0-4 and I was 1-4 or 1 of 4. So it's not good. Like, you know.
So the point is we're not very good at predicting these things.
Well, or this is a year of much upheaval. And just like with COVID, it's affected not only hockey and everything, it's affected our ability to properly choose winners in the Stanley Cup playoffs. That could be a possibility too. Who knows all the effects that the COVID-19 virus has. But that being said, we both predicted that Tampa Bay and New York Islanders, you predicted Carolina would be here. I picked Tampa, but none of us predicted the Islanders to be here. So now you have the Islanders and Tampa. Very interesting series. I think this is going to be. I don't want to undersell the Islanders because I always keep thinking that how do they do it? But you look at that team, very similar in a lot of ways to Montreal. No, maybe outstanding superstar, maybe Matt Barzal you could throw in there. But other than that, they've got a lot of very good players. Brock Nelson, Palmieri, like they've got some well-rounded scoring. They play well defensively. They play their system, and they get really good net mining from Varlamov. So to me, this is a team that could win. I still don't think they're going to have enough to beat Tampa Bay because I still think Tampa Bay has a little bit more. I think their power play has been better over the course of the first 2 rounds than the Islanders' power play, and I think you're going to get power play chances. And they just have a little bit more scoring depth or scoring talent, maybe, Tampa Bay. And they have the other X factor, which is they've been there before and they know what it takes to win. But I could see the series easily going 7 games, going back and forth until the last game. But to me, it's going to be exciting because you're going to see sort of one style of play, sort of offensively talented, moving the puck, lots of skating, versus the Islanders, which are more of a layback and do a lot of neutral zone or checking and trying to turn over pucks in the neutral zone and create 2-on-1s going the other way. I don't see Tampa Bay being so susceptible to that because I think they're pretty good with the puck. But the Islanders, I don't know if you noticed in the series against the Bruins, Islanders forced a lot of turnovers on the Bruins' young defenseman, especially that poor kid Grzelcyk. I think his name is Grzelcyk. Boy, oh boy, he turned over so many pucks, especially in the last few games, that caused direct chances to score and also directly to goals for the Islanders. So I just don't see that the Tampa Bay Lightning have that same problem. I think they have very good puck-moving defensemen and veteran guys. So that's kind of how I'm reading it. I still see Tampa Bay as being stronger than the Islanders in this one over 7 games. How about for you?
Well, to me, I see it one of 2 ways. Nikita Kucherov has come back for the playoffs. Steven Stamkos has come back for the playoffs after missing the back half of the regular season with injury. To me, this is one in the crease. Andrei Vasilevskiy will take on what we believe to be Semyon Varlamov, although Sorokin has won them a series back in the first round. So we figured out the Islanders are capable of winning with two goalies. But I just think, it's interesting. You're a Stanley Cup champ until you're defeated. The champ has the right to defend himself until beaten. And this is just, to me, it seems two polar opposites. Tampa Bay a run and down offense. New York Islanders a little bit stay at home, capitalize on your turnovers. I know I predicted one way and it's always been the other way, but what ends up happening? But again, I sold the Islanders short in round number 2. And I said 3 weeks ago, or a month ago, it would not surprise me if the Islanders are in the semifinals. I am stupid enough for taking the Carolina Hurricanes because I knew better from what I said 2 weeks ago. But again, Pittsburgh is a different animal than Tampa. Tampa's got some healthy guys, some young guys, a good goalie, good defense core. This, to me, is can the Islanders create enough havoc on Victor Hedman as a defenseman to limit what he does, to move the puck, to score timely goals, and can the Islanders force Victor Hedman into some uncomfortable situations going backwards? I would answer no to all those questions I just asked, and I'm with you. I think Tampa's going to win this series in 7 games, but you know what? It's very trapped in the Islanders. They have a way of defending you, literally trying to put you to sleep, and then they score 2 quick goals on you, and they come back. So in the third period, if this is a close game, close games, I think it's advantage New York Islanders. But here's the other thing. Tampa has not seen a team like the New York Islanders so far in these playoffs. The New York Islanders have not seen a team like Pittsburgh. So I think it's just who can impose their style of play the longest is going to win this series.
Yep.
That's how I see it. But you know what? People can see it differently. But I almost hate because I know I'm going to regret this decision. But I still, when push comes to shove, believe Tampa will beat the Islanders. But again, we're at such a surprise where the Islanders have been in the conference final now 3 times in 4 years, or 4 times in 6 years, and they just haven't been able to do it. Part of me wonders if this is the chance to break through.
Mm-hmm.
What a big statement that would be. To take Tampa out. But again, will that happen? I don't know. And the longer this series goes, in my opinion, it's advantage Tampa.
Okay. Okay, so you want to make your prediction?
Are we okay with our pitch 7 games for Tampa?
Well, you have to tell me what you're picking. I haven't said what I'm saying. I hinted at it, but I haven't said nothing. Don't start putting words in my mouth here.
Yeah. Okay. No, it sounded like a 7 game. The way you were talking 7 games in back and forth. I'm taking Tampa and 6 just because their power. Boy. Their firepower abilities and the slightly better goaltending will lead them to a series win in 6, but it won't be easy. There's going to be a lot of 1-goal games and maybe some overtimes.
Okay.
But Tampa wins it in 6.
Okay. I think Tampa's going to win it too, but I'll go 7 just to be different.
Okay.
Okay.
For reasons we've already discussed?
Yep.
Okay, let's talk quickly about the other series that starts tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Montreal, the 4th in the North, going to play Las Vegas, the 2nd in the West. Boy, oh boy, Rick. If we were sitting here 2 weeks ago and watching Las Vegas get absolutely steamrolled in game number 1 by Colorado as to what's next on the list, I'm not sure we saw 4 straight wins after dropping the first two at Ball Arena.
No.
Vegas found it at the last second and have quite frankly dominated the series outside of game number one. I thought they deserved a better fate in game two. Didn't get it, but I thought from the second period of game number two right till the end, the Avs didn't really have an answer for Vegas.
No, you're right. That series completely changed after the first two games in Colorado.
And I mean, even then, I mean, like Vegas, they score an overtime goal there. It's 1-1 of Vegas, and who knows what happens. But so Montreal defeats Winnipeg in a sweep. Teams that come off a sweep do not have an awful lot of success in the following round. Are we too quick to suggest that this might be a lopsided series?
Well, I didn't think Montreal was going to beat Toronto, and they beat Toronto. I didn't think Montreal was going to beat Winnipeg, and they beat Winnipeg. So now Montreal's up against not just the second seed in the West, but the second seed overall in the league. And Montreal was the 16th place team getting in the playoffs, and Vegas was 2. So there's a huge disparity in terms of where they were during the regular season. Now, that being said, like we said earlier, Montreal, their advantage is they play fourth line or 4 lines. They play a system. They get scoring from everyone or from throughout their lineup. They play a system very well. They make it hard for you to score against them. They have really good defense that can move the puck and are tough to play against. They have really good net minding, and that's a recipe for success anytime in the playoffs. But on the other side, for me, Vegas has great net minding. Vegas has great defense. And I think to Vegas's advantage is I think they have more upper end skill level than Montreal. And I don't want to pick against Montreal 3 times in a row and then have them win 3 times in a row, because that would make me sick to my stomach. But that being said, I just don't see on paper, in reality, for the reason you said above, after coming off of a sweep, all those things, I just don't know if Montreal has enough in the tank overall, and especially against Vegas. Vegas is a very good hockey team. I just don't see Montreal having much success against Vegas. They might be able to keep it close and be in games 2-1, 3-2, and then an empty netter make it 4-2, but I just don't see how Montreal shuts down Vegas the way they shut down Winnipeg, because Vegas does not have the holes in their lineup the way that Winnipeg did. That's just how I see it. Winnipeg is a team with a lot of faults as compared to Vegas, in my opinion. So how about for you? How do you see it?
Well, I have a general question before I answer that.
Okay.
What does Montreal's run through the North tell you about the North Division, if anything?
Well, I think overall, it not just what it tells me about the division. I thought this all along, and it'll be really interesting to see how it all plays out. But I think the North Division was a weaker division overall than the other 3 divisions in the States. So I think whoever came out of the North, whoever that would be, even Toronto, if it had been Toronto, still would have had a hard time against either Colorado or Tampa Bay or Vegas or whoever they would come up against in the third round. So just because it's Montreal and Montreal beat Toronto and then Montreal beat Winnipeg, that for me still doesn't tell me a lot, because Toronto had a ton of injuries and the Jets had a lot of holes in their lineup, which were exposed by Montreal's system. I don't think Vegas has those holes the way that the Jets do. That's my opinion. But so
Montreal had the chance because of Carey Price.
that is
Montreal
true.
had the chance because they know they can score the timely goal if they can keep it close.
Yep.
Las Vegas has a chance because they have experience in this round compared to Montreal. Las Vegas has been to 1 Stanley Cup final, which makes me absolutely sick, and 3 out of 4 conference finals, including 1 Stanley Cup final appearance. And I think it's going to be a second straight or a second time in the Stanley Cup finals for what should we call it, for the Vegas Golden Knights. But again, I think I would just caution everybody because, I put it on Facebook that this series was starting on Monday, and there were comments about, Montreal's not just stand a chance. How they didn't do it? Well, nobody said they did it then against Toronto. Nobody said they did it then about Winnipeg.
Correct.
But this, to me, is a completely different animal. But I think if you are saying that Vegas is going to win this in 4 or 5 easy hockey games, you have not been watching the Montreal Canadiens very closely. They have a goalie that can steal the series. They have a defense that can be punishing on you, as we saw with the Jet series for sure. I'm not sure if Jeff Petrie is going to be back. I think that's a bit of a wild card.
Mhm.
He did make the trip to Las Vegas. All I'm saying is it looks very top heavy in Vegas' favor, but I would be very quick to resurrect that this is going to be an easy series by any means. Even if Montreal falls behind 3 games to 1, because we saw them already come back.
Yep. No, I think so too. I think Montreal is going to play Vegas very tough. They're going to play them very tough, and Vegas is going to have to play very well. But I just don't see, can Vegas, like the question is, can Montreal do to Vegas what they did with their system to Toronto and Winnipeg? They did it to Toronto because Toronto had a lot of injuries and had a lot of, you could argue, a lot of selfish play by some of their forwards, some of their young forwards, I would argue. Yep. They did it against Winnipeg because Winnipeg has a lot of holes in their lineup, and they were only able to play 3 lines and maybe 2 sets of defensemen, and their defense is not very deep, whereas Montreal played 4 lines and played 3 sets of defensemen for the most part. So I'm just saying, now Montreal comes up against a team that has really good goaltending, veteran defense who can move the puck and score, very good power play, not many holes, if any, in that lineup. It's a completely different matchup for Montreal against Vegas than it was against Toronto or Winnipeg. And you have to give them credit because they took advantage of what they were up against in those 2 series. But I think they're going to play Vegas hard. They're not going to just roll over and die, but I think it's going to be very hard for them to match up against the depth and the talent of the Vegas Golden Knights over 7 games. That's my opinion for all those reasons. So,
and here's another thing that I just thought of.
What's that?
Are we looking at the tandem for Team Canada goaltending-wise at the Olympics next winter?
Price and Fleury?
Yep.
Ooh, I think that's too old, isn't it?
Well, find me somebody better.
We'll see. They might not be interested.
Certainly not Jordan Binnington, which everybody wanted to kind of anoint, but he's kind of been the last 2 years. The only other goalie that I could maybe consider is his name escapes me right now.
What about the winner of the gold medal in the World Championships, Mr. Darcy Kemper?
Again, that's. I wouldn't sell anybody short, but I think Carey Price and Marc-Andre Fleury deserve just as good a look as anybody else in Canada.
Okay.
I mean, there's not that many Canadian goaltending. I mean, what was it in 2010? Brodeur, Lalonde. I can't remember who the third one was the last time. Or maybe it was Fleury.
What was who?
Maybe it was Fleury, the third stringer. Brodeur, Fleury.
Luongo and Brodeur. I'm not sure about the third one.
Was it Fleury?
Or was it Price?
Price. I know Price was in 14.
Yeah.
Price was in 14 in Sochi.
I can't remember. I can't remember.
That was that defensively dominant team, Canada.
Yep.
In 14. So then Canada's the two-time Olympic gold medalist when the NHL was involved.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Do you think Montreal has a chance against Vegas? And if they do, what is Montreal going to have to do in order to have success against Vegas in order to win this series?
I'm going to quantify this the same way I did in the Winnipeg-Edmonton series.
Okay.
Montreal can win the series if they play team defense, if they get their goaltending, if their penalty kill continues to be red hot, if they can get a power play goal a time or two, if they can stay out of the penalty box, and if they stay healthy.
Wow, that's a lot of ifs.
That's a lot of ifs.
I think I counted 6.
For Vegas, I think you have more certainty. Because I think Vegas' worst game is not a bottoming off image of Montreal's worst game.
No, but we haven't seen a bad game from Montreal in a while. You could argue those first few games against Toronto, they were in them. There was maybe one game against Toronto they didn't play well. So in the last 2 rounds, they've played maybe one bad game out of 11, I guess it would be. Yeah.
But I would like to speak to Montreal fans just for a minute.
Do you know how to speak French?
No, but I will speak to them in English.
Okay.
You are the North Division champion, okay? But you haven't won anything yet. These comparisons to 1993 are a little far-fetched. I've seen them out there. Just remember, eventually, at some point, you're going to have done to you what you've just done to Toronto and what you've just done to Winnipeg. One team can win the Stanley Cup. Okay? It's not. I saw some parties in the streets of Montreal, like the last round was the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, but if it had happened in Winnipeg, it would have been actually Winnipeg fans would have been going crazy.
That's the nature of it. I'm just saying to Montreal fans, be happy that you're here. Nobody had you here.
That is true. That is true.
It's almost fitting, right? Montreal's playing with house money. They're going into the casino in Las Vegas. You know, they got that hot card. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like it's ironic that way. Enjoy the ride. Nobody said you here.
There's no pressure on Montreal to win, or there's no they're not having to prove anything. Yeah.
That to me, Rhett, no pressure to win anything is a scary thought.
It is, especially if you have a team that will buy into your system and have a really good dressing room and a really good netminder, and they play their system. They've had success now for the latter half of the Toronto series and all of the Winnipeg series. So the players have bought in. They're going to continue playing this way all the way through until they hit a wall and it's not working. And I was going to add to your point though, the one X factor in this is you said if Montreal plays good defense and if they get good goaltending and if they play their system and if they get a power play goal here or there and their penalty kill does well, blah, blah, blah. All those ifs could still happen. And against Vegas, they could still lose because Vegas could still score a few more opportune goals and get one more power play goal than Montreal at the key time and win a lot of games 2-1, 1-0, 3-2. So I'm just saying Montreal could still play pretty good and lose 4 straight in the series, right? Yeah. So I'm just saying but I don't think they're going to lose 4 straight. I think they might win a game or here or two. So I just don't know how they overcome all those ifs and overcome the fact that Vegas does not have the holes in their lineup and in their team and in their systems like Toronto and Winnipeg had. That's what I'm not sure of. I could be completely wrong and they could completely surprise Vegas and win like they did against Toronto and Winnipeg, but I just don't see Vegas being in the same realm as Toronto and Winnipeg for all the reasons I said.
Yeah, very possible. Vegas also can't be sucked into Montreal's game. And I think the simple key, Rhett, is Vegas needs the first goal. we have not seen Montreal play from behind, with the exception of early in the series against Toronto.
Yep.
I want to see Montreal have to come back and win a game instead of being up 1-0, going into this 2-2-1 trap or whatever it's called. I want to see what happens if
Yep.
there's a little bit of pressure applied. Would you like me to make my pick and then you can make your pick?
Sure.
I'm going Montreal in 7.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you picked Tampa Bay in 6, right? And I picked Tampa Bay in 7, right? Okay, I didn't hear you. Yep. I don't know if you're on mute or not because I didn't hear you.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. And you're picking out Montreal in 7.
Yes.
Are you okay? Okay. I'm not going to argue. I'm just going to say, okay, I'm going to do something different. I'm not going to pick the same as you because that's very boring. So I am picking Las Vegas, and I'm picking Las Vegas to win in 6.
Okay. We have ourselves a nice opposites moment.
Yeah. Vegas in 6, Montreal in 7, and then Tampa Bay in 6, Tampa Bay in 7. Okay.
I will add a little caveat, though, if I can,
Okay.
with these series. Game 1 will not be any indication on how both these series will roll.
No, to your point, I think that's very true that these teams, they've seen videotape, but they've not played each other since like over a year ago. So it's going to be a real sort of feeling out. Oh, how does this North Division play? How does this Central? How does this West Division play? How does this, how does the East, it's the teams are going to, it's sort of like a heavyweight fight where in the first few rounds, the guys just kind of come out and they rope a dope and kind of see what each other is doing and try to check each other out a little bit. And I think you're right. It's the first and second game might be very different or could be very different from the last games of the series where they've had a chance to figure each other out and try to expose each other's weaknesses, whatever they are. So you're right. It'll still be interesting. I am very much looking forward to today's game between the New York Islanders and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I'll be watching it while you're on the road for 3 hours. But when we have our show next week,
I will be PVRing, so I will not miss a moment of any game. I'm also PVRing. I'm also PVRing the Euro Cup as well.
Yes, soccer is on to the beautiful game. Even though I love hockey, it's the second most beautiful game. But to me, soccer. I'm sorry if you don't like it, but
the Mannschaft plays on Tuesday.
Pardon?
The Mannschaft plays on Tuesday.
Yes, they do. They're not a favorite this year, Germany, but they have a good team, but they've got a lot of younger players. A lot of the veterans have moved on over the last few World Cups, Euro Cups, and they've gone with mostly newer, younger players and the newer additions to the team. So it'll be very interesting to see. But I still think, just we're going to touch on this, I still think the powerhouses here, the teams to watch, are England and also Belgium. Because I think maybe Italy too, but England and Belgium have a lot of talent on their rosters this year. So.
Yeah, both those teams looked good in their opening matches as well. Italy over Turkey, and then this afternoon, Belgium with the 3-0 win, and then
England played
with a 1-0 win over Croatia.
Well, they won this morning, right? Yeah.
So I just wanted to pass on my quick thoughts to Team Denmark and their teammate that, unfortunately, I don't think there's any way to say this, almost passed away on the field yesterday. Had to be resuscitated via CPR and an AED machine.
Yep.
Glad to hear he's on the mend.
His name, by the way, is actually Christian Eriksen.
Christian Eriksen, yep. One of the Danish top players.
Yeah. What's really interesting, though, too, Michael, I was chatting about this. Now we're getting the sidetrack with soccer, but it's sports, and it's
That's okay.
And I will tie in hockey. Just like what happened to Jay Bouwmeester when he was sitting on the bench and just slumped over, and they weren't sure what happened. It's just that it's an irregular. I think we're going to find out it's a heart irregularity, a heartbeat thing, something. Just like Jay Bouwmeester, he did tests. He did training. He took a year off of hockey. He talked to me. I mean, St. Louis has no limit of expense when it comes to medical analysis and getting him the very best people to see and the best machines to look at him and do all that evaluation. And after 1 year, they said basically, Jay, we can't promise you anything, but if you want to live to be an old grandpa, we would recommend you not playing high-end professional sports anymore. And what does he have to prove, Jay Bouwmeester? He's like 35. He won a Stanley Cup. He's made money. So he made the smart decision for his life. Now, I don't know Eriksson's. I don't know his situation. I don't know. But to me, soccer is just as athletically challenging as hockey. And to me, I don't know how he comes back and plays soccer again. I just don't know. To me, if it was me and I went through that, I would look at all the evidence and say, is it worth it for me, for the love of the game, to risk that and potentially lose my life at a young age just for the love of the game? I mean, if you love your life and your family, I think he's married. I don't know if he has children, but I'm just saying there's much more to life.
Yeah, his wife, I don't know if you saw the pictures yesterday. I was away, but I had the video sent to me. His poor wife was so distraught in the stands. The game was in Copenhagen, Denmark, so as you can imagine, the stadium had a fairly sizable hush. You don't want to see that happen to anybody. It did happen to anybody in any sport. I would even throw, just to make a quick Jets reference, Brian Little into that list too, the perforated eardrum. Like Chevy said on Friday, has not been cleared to play yet, has not found a doctor to sign off. And it sounded like Brian Little was unofficially but officially retired.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but again, I think it just goes to show that we as fans can enjoy beautiful games, but there is this risk of life and risk of death just as well in sports as it is anybody getting into a car or anything. Everything comes with risk. And I think we just have to remember that at the end of the day, they play a game that we all love, and we get entertained, but it's not the be-all, end-all of everything.
I agree. And it'd be interesting to see how this all plays out. But yeah, it was somewhat of a dark day for sports yesterday, but I'm glad to hear that he's doing better. So I guess to wrap up, maybe we've got just a few minutes left here. We should summarize our picks then, or we should actually review last round. You got nobody right. We'll remind everyone again, you were completely wrong in every selection you made in the second round. And I was only slightly better, and I got 1 out of 4 selections right. I was able to pick the Lightning as the winner. All the other picks we made were wrong. So now we're going to the semifinals, reseeding, all starting over again. You are picking Montreal in 7. I am picking Las Vegas in 6, and you are picking Tampa Bay in 7, and I am picking Tampa Bay. No, you picked Tampa Bay in 7 or 6? 7, right? I'm actually getting mixed up. Who picked them in 7 and who picked them in 6?
What's that? Montreal. I picked Montreal in 7.
No, Tampa Bay. You picked Tampa in 6? You picked Tampa. Okay, then I picked Tampa in 7. Okay. So that's the summary for picks. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's that. We'll be back probably next Monday in our regular slot on the radio because I'm looking up ahead here. It'll be game 5 approximately of both series.
Okay. What about the inquiry from the listener? Were we going to hit on that quickly before we go?
Pardon me?
The inquiry from the listener. There was a question.
Yeah, I will get to that. Rob, I see all your comments on the video. My apologies that I can't share them because they're very, very good comments. I just wanted to quickly mention here. Whoops, if I can find it. You have to make sure that people comment on the Game Time TV video feed because that's how these comments come in. I have yet to figure out how to activate comments off of our sub-streaming platforms.
Oh.
Let's go here. Both series could provide provided outcomes, but only if the Canadians and Islanders goaltending stands out. Fair
Agreed.
point.
Agreed.
We kind of touched on that. Vegas speed will definitely be difficult for the Canadians to contain. Tampa definitely a 4-line team, which would be a big test for the Islanders.
Yep.
The only thing I would say to that last part is Pittsburgh is a pretty darn good 4-line team as well.
Pittsburgh.
And they dispatched them, in round number 1.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's just very interesting. The other one, I don't want to start too much of a conversation, but he says Chevy has a reticence and reluctance to make a move that will take the Jets to the next level. I have long said, Rich, that slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah.
And not an overreactive trade.
Right, but you could argue, you could say trading away a number 2 overall draft pick and a sniper, a world-class sniper for Pierre-Luc Dubois, another centerman, that's a big trade. And that was very, that can change a whole team and a whole makeup of how a team is. So I think he'll do it when he needs to do it or when he's forced his hand to do it. This offseason, I think his hand is forced because fans are not going to, like I said to you in the last show, maybe I'll wrap it up with this. If they come back to training camp with the exact same core of defensemen and the core of the 4th line, and they sign back all the guys and they start next season with the exact guys that they ended this year, that is not a recipe for success. Not when they have to play all the teams in the league. They won't make the playoffs next year. They have to upgrade. So
that's fair.
Anyway.
I think you put your coach unnecessarily in the line of fire as a result.
Yeah. Well, have a great time on vacation.
I will. We will be back middle of the week. Speaking of which, the best of Game Time today will air on Monday, so that's tomorrow at noon. My sit-down with former Winnipeg Goldeyes promotions coordinator Tara Meslowski. You heard her on the show earlier this month. So we'll replay that nice chat. She talked about losing the championship falsely, only to find out the other team didn't fairly win, only to have your team win the championship 2 nights later, and the emotions that went through that result with the Winnipeg Goldeyes now 3 years ago. Tuesday, I'm going to replay my Game Time Today conversation with former Prairie Blaze and MWGHL champion defenseman Allison Donnelly, also a champ in life, as are a lot of those players that play in the Junior Women's League. So you'll hear my nice conversation with Allison. And then on Wednesday, you'll hear a brand new Game Time Today player interview sit down with current Prairie Blaze forward Naomi Berube. We talked about the Winnipeg Jets. We talked about the series with Montreal. Interesting side note, that interview was recorded while the Montreal-Winnipeg series was in progress. We talked about what it was like missing the whole season as an athlete and looking forward to this season coming up as well. On Thursday, we're going to have a live show. We'll recap the Euro, where we are to date, and all that kind of stuff. And on Friday, I'm very, very excited to have Corey Hume on the show. One of the scouts from ISS Hockey. They just put out their big draft rankings. Next to Central Scouting, they are the biggest hockey scouting network in hockey. So everybody says Central Scouting, ISS Hockey is just another one of those organizations that does mock drafts. And he's going to send me their draft list, and we're going to talk about it, just how unique that season was. He's the Manitoba scout for ISS Hockey, had a big part in putting that list together, which goes from 1, I think, to the top 100. So you'll hear that interview on Friday. I'm actually recording that interview with him on Wednesday night. And then next week, which will be the week of the 21st, we'll be back to normal with the Game Time Today at noon. So a lot to look forward to. We have some big programming announcements as well coming up in the next few days as well. So stay tuned for that. Very, very excited stuff coming up for both Game Time TV, and we might have a little companion channel coming out in the fall if all things go well. Rich, thank you for sitting through my pre and post amble. Thank you for sitting with me for longer than we bargained for. I'm going on an hour and 10 minutes. You are always the champ with being able to accommodate, move shows, being able to be flexible, especially in the playoffs. I very, very much appreciate it. I appreciate you even more as a co-host and a close confidant in myself. So some of it we can confide in each other in much different ways that goes beyond the show, and that's just what makes this show, I think, work so well. Very well. Thank you, Rhett. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Enjoy the week. Enjoy the hockey. Enjoy whatever you do this week. And we'll be back in person on the radio, socially distanced, appropriately spaced out, probably next Monday. I'm thinking to be next Monday. Stay tuned for the time, and we'll put that online. Then we'll look ahead to the Stanley Cup Final and then the draft and all that comes with it. What is going to be absolute mass chaos in the NHL with the Seattle Kraken coming back or coming into the lead in the Emerald City. Once again, for Rich Petty, this is Mike Riddell saying thank you very much for watching, and we will talk to you next week. This has been a presentation of Game Time TV and the Ultimate Hockey Show, and you're watching it on Game Time TV. Have a great week. We'll talk to you then. Bye for now.